Friends, in this video for I Thought Wealth, I'm going to talk to you on the topic, what COVID taught me. None of us were ready for COVID. COVID was probably the event which no investor had mentally prepared for. I'm no different. So when it happened, there are multiple thought processes that were running in my mind. The first thing which came to my mind is that everything I did in investing was centered around me. If I was around, it would happen. I'm talking of my personal investing. Professionally, it is actually not so bad. There are enough people in my team who are attending to clients, who are doing many things absolutely necessary. We had a lot of trained bench and people actually contributing. But the personal portfolio was completely dependent on me. It was completely reliant on my presence. I suddenly realized that actually my personal portfolio is far more vulnerable than the professional portfolio. The professional portfolio had a process, and I had never borrowed on the professional bandwidth for my personal work. I had kept it always aside. So suddenly I was faced with a situation where I had to build a new process for my personal portfolio, which would gradually deleverage from my own risk, the risk of me being available to manage. That is something which I had never thought about before COVID. It never crossed my mind because I felt that could wait. But now you know it couldn't wait. So the way you organize yourself, the way you make a financial plan, a contingency plan, the way you start preparing for a more organized ideation where you bring in more people to contribute, where you start investing in businesses for a much longer period of time, because by virtue of reducing the number of decisions and the need to make constant decisions itself, one could bring down the risks significantly. So I started looking at how I could own companies for 5-10 years and what kind of business to own. That was at a time when I had just got into private markets. It was not a good time being a private market investor. COVID was nasty. It was a punch on the nose because the businesses went through hell. But the fact that I had an opportunity to relook at the whole mosaic afresh made me think, why not I actually put more confidence and money in private markets, because there I would not need to disturb anything for 5 years or 10 years or even longer. That openness came because of COVID. Otherwise, I may not have been as open because the valuations in the private markets were extremely good just after COVID. Of course, they went to another extreme subsequently when you had the unicorn rush. But prior to that, it was much more engaging and absorbing and interesting and exciting to look at private investments, because these are very small companies which were all valued at maybe anywhere around a couple of 100 crores, which could become unicorns over 10-15 years or whatever duration they would take. That opportunity looked very, very interesting, and that opportunity came because of COVID, because otherwise companies would have been at a much higher valuation. The trajectory was much higher. I'm an investor who completely enjoyed investing in businesses for a few 100 crores and saw them grow to $500 million or 1 billion in the last decade. That is between 2009 and 2018. So suddenly it appeared to me that private markets were giving me that opportunity. I started looking at it more actively and giving it as much importance as I gave to public markets. That's the basic thing that COVID taught me, to view both on the same keel, because otherwise what you do as an investor is you are more partial to public markets because you have liquidity and you have a number thrown at you more regularly by Mr. Market, and you have a lot of people around you giving you company in stocks. It's a nice crowded trade, right? So that's a nice comfort zone to be in. It's like being in a buzzing party. But private markets are not like that. It's just a few of you sitting in a lonely restaurant, in a quiet table, and doing that days together. Nothing is going to happen. You have to wait, and you have to patiently plot your path. But I like that path because that's what I had done in the previous decade, and suddenly I flipped my thought process from public markets to private markets to do exactly the same thing in a very, very different type of a setting. COVID gave me that opportunity. With respect to public markets, I decided that I would think afresh and not play the COVID trade where everybody was flipping things based on a kind of a momentum that had already built into COVID, and there was a lot of pump and dump happening. So suddenly you were able to take the valuation of company 3-4x by publicizing it and then selling out. I completely stayed away from all that these 2-3 years. None of it. I have not even participated as an investor in any of those trades. I walked away from all this, and that gave me a discipline which I really enjoy owning, because I am not comparing myself with anyone. I am not trying to be like anyone else, and I am trying to be myself, which is what gave me my most gratifying decade just 10 years before that. So I just want to be that person. I don't want to be this person which I had grown into over the decade. So it gave me a chance to completely rewind and go back to where I like being, a comfort zone. And I did that in public markets also between 2020 and 2023, and I have again repositioned and repurposed my portfolio towards investments which I may not disturb for a very long time. Interestingly, in this case, a lot of those investments align, because I'm building a solitaire portfolio, I'm building a Vriddhi portfolio. There I'm not going to make any changes, I'm going to keep adding. And as I sell more companies in the private markets or in the public markets, I want to bet on the philosophy which we are professionally building for all of you, and I would be a co-participant. I am the largest investor in solitaire and Vriddhi, and hopefully I remain so through additional contributions. I also hope to be the largest investor in all the other products also over a period of time, because I want professional management to take care of my interest. Importantly, I'm not going to be the fund manager for very long. I'm going to be in the investment team, but I'm not going to be the fund manager. My colleagues are going to be the fund managers going forward, and they're going to run these products. They have been contributing very significantly right through this COVID phase in building these products, and I have actively engaged with them. That has given me a lot of mental bandwidth to be very comfortable with somebody else running a strategy, and I'm sitting on the sidelines and watching how they do it. We are into constant discussion of how it can be improved. I'm only contributing to those improvements and not really being an overwhelming presence in that investment room. So that is something which I have learned from COVID. That's another very, very important learning. And I see that the next decade is going to be very different. The rest of this decade is going to be very different. And it's very important for an investor to reinvent himself every decade. And for me, this reinvention happened thanks to COVID, because otherwise I would have been just cruising along, not seeing a sense of urgency. That sense of urgency came from COVID, and I have managed to use it a lot. I'm also looking at how I can invest outside India in outstanding businesses, because I think that in India, there is a scarcity of outstanding business at the right valuation. I was able to manage a few, maybe 6 or 7 in the last 2-3 years, but I'm not getting much higher numbers here. So I've been testing the waters outside India. One outstanding company which I tried investing in was Crocs. Another one was Nvidia in the US. I'm trying at new ideas which are going to be very big learnings for me, and I want to play those investments also and develop some kind of a comfort zone. The important thing is, when I do this, anybody could do that. It's not as if I am some unique investor buying these companies. These are all well discovered companies in the West. So my family would also be able to be familiar with these investments. They would be able to understand why I am doing this. Everything is in the public domain. These are all well researched companies. So there in the US markets or outside India under the LRS, I am trying something very, very open, transparent, and very, very easy to understand, but difficult to carry conviction. But there I'm learning not only to build my conviction, but also to transfer my conviction to my family members, to own those companies for extended periods of time. So in that sense, from being a one-person investment engine for my own self, now there are many people working with me, and I'm very comfortable with them working with me, and I'm trying my best to make sure they are comfortable working with me, because this is a mutual comfort which grows, and that's how you're able to build a investment team for yourself. Building a professional invest team is different, but for a professional investor to build an investment team for himself requires a lot of different mindsets, because you must accept the views of others and not trust your views on them, because if you trust your views on them, they are not going to give their views to you, right? They would push back and say, hey, this guy, I better just be safe with him. I don't risk saying something which he won't like. So you have to create that openness and the comfort zone for people to give you their views, and you have to create a team of very, very young people who can tell you those views, because I need people who are less than half my age who will be able to do that with me, because I did that with people with great success, and that is how I grew as an investor, right? If they had not allowed me to do this, I would not have grown. And when I am allowing these people to do this, not only they are growing, they're also helping me grow. So this is a mindset change which came to me post-COVID, because otherwise I would be very instructive before, say, I would listen to a few views and just say, do this, because I was very impatient as a person. I think COVID made me far more patient, because you have to first wait it out, weather it. You had so much adversity around you, you faced so much of losses in terms of people, loved ones, friends going through difficult times. It all seasoned your mind to think differently, to orient yourself to a different life after COVID. And that's something which COVID taught me. While it was a very difficult phase for all of us, while it was very intense for many of us, I chose to use that phase to repurpose myself, to repurpose my investments, to repurpose my capital, and to repurpose my life. So in that sense, COVID has been a positive for me in an environment that was extremely negative. And I hope that this learning that I have taken from COVID will stay with me for a long time to come. Thank you for watching this video.